problems. So that's just another example of artificial intelligence being able to make certain knowledge and content accessible that one could never find on their own.
Yes. And it's really important, though, to make a whole of the technology accessible to those who barely have energy even or power to let alone access to the internet. So these are the things that we need to drive awareness to. And I think we need to educate those who have, so that they can have empathy and compassion and demand extending the reach and access so that we know each other. But and I'd love to get, we're nearly running out of time. I'm taking the extra 5 minutes that they took from us in the past beginning to have you say. But human machine teaming and is important work that needs to be done in a way that with the right people having a seat at the table, and that everyone has a seat at the table, and that it is not something that is scary or that is reserved for the engineers or the corporates. So it has to be stakeholder centric. And believe it or not, the individual or the data owner was never really considered in the past as as a stakeholder even. So you walking around in the city, you're not the data, even though you're the data subject, you're not the data owner, which we fight that. When your car is watching your every move and deciding if you're happy or mad, or you're good enough to drive, or it should call you in, it's also a lot of invasion to your privacy, as much as it could also save your life. So I don't want to mess saying your name, DC. DC,
Isn't that like life, though? Isn't that like life?
Right. And we need to change life.
Always going to be the pros and the cons.
Yes. And then we have to balance them, and we have to think about the intended, but also mostly the unintended tests. Right. You've been so quiet, and it's my bad. And I'm dying to hear what you have to say. And,
yeah, I mean, as far as like having, I don't like that, the invasion of privacy, and we just have to have rules to balance that out. And, I think we're getting to that point with the social media, where if we don't take action now, we're not going to have those rules, and then it's going to just go off, and everyone's going to just do whatever they want. But yeah, I think there are happy mediums, like Lisi said. They're just things that are going to happen no matter what. I mean, things are already, the stoplight is already reading my every move. It's just, things are already in existence. We can't change those things. Those things are getting data. Like when I go in an elevator, it goes up and down, and it gives some sort of AI feedback to the hotel chain or whatever. You're just a number, essentially. But we want to give those numbers or those people the chance to understand why they're those numbers, not just that you're just another number. We want, and that's kind of, what I want to promote is to help people understand why those numbers need to happen in order to, make elevators safer, something like that, or make crosswalks, more attentive to what's going on around you and their cars, and going towards electric cars and those kind of things, and being able to the betterment of technology in this space. But I think Debbie has probably some good points as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tess. I think we all have a collective idea of a utopia, egalitarian society that AI can facilitate, because it's kind of a great equalizer. I think we are living in more of an information age, where literally with YouTube University, anyone can, gather information and create spaces. I firmly believe the idea of the mindset is the key to shifting society. When you shift the mindset, everything shifts. So I absolutely believe that. But being aware makes me realize I'm not just living in a spiritual, psychological world. I'm living in a physical world where I have to outwardly, with my intention and my awareness, affect change through that. That's my goal as an individual and as a collective. And I want to draw a parallel between the esoteric world, take it for what you will, but if you study it a bit, like the nature of reality, reality is always revealing to us that we're living in a simulation anyway.
That's right.
Our bodies are hardwares that are processing EMFs all the time on various biogeometric levels. And if you think about the issue of privacy, let's hypothetically assume that Akashic records are real, right? There's something documenting our world at all times. Whether you believe it or not, at some level, data is always being collected. So as you
Generated. Yes.
generated, collected, this is what we're here for. We are here to do the very thing because we are the original AI. That's my belief.
That's right. And as Polito's point was, there's always been data. There's more and more data, but it's about asking the right questions and then acting on them. I know we are way over time, and we have a hard stop. But I hope that I would just, if you all, I'll leave you, and they're gonna beat me up later for doing this. But like 2 words, if you want, for me, from respect, not fear, as we heard earlier, abundance, not scarcity, and I'm sick of exclusive events to talk about inclusion. So let's really inclusion to mean inclusion. I'm so blessed to have you all here on this panel. You all promised me that we are going to continue to work together in the future. And like in 5 minutes after this, or at the end of the day, may we all gather well. If anybody else has a word to say before our close, please unmute your mic. Otherwise, it's all unmute on mics and say, may the gather be well, our gathering be well with all.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM and host of the Follow Rand podcast and TV series. Welcome to our fireside chat, focusing on the AI symphony, orchestrating changes in global society and its ethical impact. And today we will explore in a few minutes societal transformation that navigates the ethical landscape with Miriam Bryant. How are you doing, Miriam?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much, Grant. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. We're going to jump right in. We got our first question because you are phenomenal. How do you envision AI reshaping our interaction with art and enhancing creativity, particularly in light of your work at the intersection of art, science, and technology?
Thank you so much, Grant. I think you're phenomenal. I think there's so many different ways that AI will impact art. It already has. And I see AI really as another tool, another paintbrush for artists to be able to engage with. And I know there's currently two different schools of thought, and I'm trying to straddle the fine line, walk the edge in the middle of saying, this is a new technology, just as, light was a new technology, or even fire. I think what we're looking at is a push between the past, the present, and the future, and there will always be some sort of tension in bringing people on board as early adopters, as people who are purists in what fine art is and how AI can inform it. So the potential is exponential. In terms of how it's used, I think it boils down to the ethics of how the AI is created and how it's brought into the world. So that ethical moral compass is really the guiding star, the lighthouse, the beacon, if you will, that will um, also see, I think, we'll see a pattern and a shift between this pendulum swing of people going into high tech, and then a push back into, slow tech, no tech. One of the shows I had last year had zero tech, and part of it was understanding and preparing for the shift of, there's so much tech, we get inundated, and fully immersive experiences are nothing new. They were in museums in Japan as far back as 2018. It's just now they're getting to be a little bit more accepted globally, and there'll be a saturation where we move on to the next new thing. And that's part of our human composition, or the way that our minds are always seeking neophiliac experiences, so new, novel things that will create neuronal sparks and have those synapses say, "Ooh, this is something different."
Oh
And I
my
think
God,
that's
this is going to
what art
really change
offers.
our experience as humanity is on the verge of of just a great change. And I've heard of those things that you just talked about, like digital fatigue. People get fatigued digitally. They kind of tune out, tune in, or they get saturated. And there's a lot out there because it's a new tool, it's a new toy. We're all playing with it now, right? So we got just a few minutes. It's going to go real quick. But considering your team's expertise from quantum physics to neuroscience, what are the key ethical challenges and opportunities in AI development? And how do these considerations influence our understanding of consciousness? You got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Grant. That's a bit of an impossible task, but I'll try. I think it touches on some of the dialogue from the earlier panel, and I think where we're headed toward is a digital consciousness. What we're creating here is the evolution of the new sphere, and I won't go into that, but you're welcome to take a look. We're also looking at the telos, the purpose. Why was AI created? How did the internet come to be? And how is it evolving? And part of that infrastructure dictates the archetypes and the cultures that are the foundational pillars of the AI that we're using. So the question of copyright, the question of whose oral traditions and stories are digitized in our compendia to be used as a database for images, for creativity, and then looking at the educational stream of women and other groups in tech. Part of that is embedding, and this is part of a 23-page white paper, embedding universal design in the conceptual architecture. So how do we get more people into STREAM, science, technology, reading, writing, recreation, engineering, art, and math? And I've presented at Microsoft conferences for developers before, Grant, and I just want to leave you with this.
Yes.
Out of the 200 developers in the audience, only 10 were women. And so
Wow.
it creates a little bit of a homogenous kind of, pipeline in terms of the concepts that go into the design. I see a lot of people in the chat, so I know you're taking a look as well. In terms of consciousness, I think we're going to see a shift as well. The title of this talk is the AI Symphony. We know that technology impacts our biomagnetic fields. We have magnetic fields in our hearts and our brains, and we know that there's an interaction there. We haven't had deep dives into it, and so part of it is we're engaged in a global social experiment with our children, with the elderly who are feeling increasingly isolated. I'm going a little over your 3 minutes, I think, but I think these are all part of the answer to the question that you asked.
I think what we're going to do, we have to have you back because, and we talked even yesterday, that these kinds of concepts and discussions could take hours because we are definitely in the world of expansion and it's all a newness. And we've got to have people like yourself talk us through some of these things and what we're going through as an experience because the world that our parents know and grandparents knew is changing. So I appreciate you being with us today. Our gather has been well, and we will see you again shortly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Hello, everyone. We're going to get everybody in here for our next roundtable discussion. You see, they are popping in rather quickly. And I want to welcome everybody to Gatherverse AI Summit 2024, where we're going to explore humanity at its core, talking about AI and the future of work. I am Grant McGaugh, your moderator for this crucial roundtable discussion. And today we're delving into how AI is revolutionizing our workplaces from reshaping job roles to enhancing productivity and decision making. And our expert panelists will tackle pressing questions like how can AI augment employee training? What ethical considerations must we address in AI deployment? And how do we balance AI driven automation with human creativity and maintain a human centric workplace? We'll also discuss AI's role in mental health, remote work models, and talent acquisition. Our goal is to provide actionable insights for businesses on adopting AI responsibly while fostering transparency and trust. So let's dive into this intersection of technology and humanity, and we're going to unravel some of AI's transformative role in the future of work. Now, for this particular panel, what I'm going to do, because we've got 5 or 6 people here, I'm going to ask a question. And then I'm going to go, I'll call your name. Hopefully I can see your name. I got really bad vision, but I'll do my best here to do that. And then I want you to each, when I call on you, to state your name, who you are, what you represent, and then answer the question. We've got about 14 different slides or so you'll have time to introduce yourself. So Miriam, since you're right next to me on my panel. No, Maria. Is that Maria? That's how you pronounce it?
Maria, yeah.
Maria?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go with Maria then. We're going to answer that. We're going to see the question on the screen. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, kind of move from there. But how is AI reshaping traditional workplace structures and environments?
So I'm Maria. I work with technologists basically, and how it's restructuring workplace for me is just basically being able to increase productivity, access a lot more information. I think that the way that people work now, because they're more productive, there's shorter time frames and just different things that have been restructured because of how much freedom that they may have in their work now. And so I think that that's the main way for me in my company.
I love it. I love it because it definitely is a change taking place without question in the workplace. Michael, you're right below I say Maria because I know somebody with that name, so I'll say Maria. We're going to go to the next question. I guess you're following this, and I also wanted to state, if someone feels they want to jump in on this particular question, jump in. We'll get to you, but jump on in because this is important. So we're going to get Michael off of mute, right? Right? And we say, in what ways can AI enhance human productivity without replacing human roles?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Goldrich. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. And before I was saying, be careful what you ask for. We'll all be jumping in on everything. So anyway, I'm Michael Goldrich. I'm chief advisor of a company called Levander Advisors. And what we do is we do AI transformation for companies, as well as education and upskilling. So I think this is an interesting question about how AI can enhance human productivity without replacing human roles, because there was a study done back in 2020 that says, AI will replace people who don't use AI. And however, AI plus a human will always do better than AI. So to answer your question is, knowing that that's true, that human productivity will need to leverage this AI. So, but how can it do it? It can do personalized recommendations. So you can use this technology that can help in terms of task management, optimizing individual workflows instead of overall group workflows. It could be your personal assistant. So this technology, without replacing human roles, can create a personal assistant for scheduling meetings, managing emails, and time management. And those are all things that we have to do that are huge time sucks that everyone will like to have that time back. And also, I guess, in terms of sort of like predictive analytics, this technology can help identify challenges people might have in work before it happens, and then it can augment the response. So that way, these are all things that AI can do to enhance productivity, and it's not replacing humans. And all it is making us a better employee, a better associate. That's what I think about that.
No, I love it, man. Precision and personalization is definitely going to be taking place. Could it be bad, good, or bad, depending on the individual, right? We're going to get Charlene. Charlene's going to come off of mute. We're going to talk about strategies that can be implemented to ensure harmonious AI human workforce. That's an interesting question. What do you got for us, Charlene? And introduce yourself. Tell us about you and what you're doing.
Thank you, Grant. So my name is Charlene Nichols. I'm the founder of the Omniverse City. I'm also one of the co-founders of Eyewear Art Walk. And I have to say my relationship with AI started when I became an SEO strategist at the beginning of my digital marketing agency. There came a time in digital marketing where you just really needed to produce a lot of content, and research was challenging. And the first thing I realized when I started using AI, and this is before the big AI boom of recent, this is like, 6-7 years ago, was that you could take the same piece of content and write it in so many different ways. And I don't come from, and I don't know if there really is a more conservative pathway to AI. Or if there is any true expert in this day and age, because we're learning in real time. But I remember thinking very recently, am I qualified to be somebody working with AI, building AI, talking about AI? But I have to tell you, I do have a team. I trust them. I ask them a lot of questions. I'm in an industry that's very medical focused. And I really want to make sure when I'm building something that I do my research and I understand what we should and shouldn't be doing. And I have to feel like what I've learned recently is AI is, and again, talking from the standpoint of content creation and using it for business strategies, I think it's really a way to leverage information that's already there, but there's just so much information out there. How could you possibly parse it down? And I feel like one of the best strategies is helping people to understand how AI is built. Again, there's a lot of different AIs out there, so I'm talking specifically about the Chat GPT version of AI, which is what everybody thinks of when they think of AI. I've learned that there's different types of AI, lots of ways to leverage AI, but I'm talking specifically about the AI that most people think of, which kind of Chat GPT is branded AI, and understanding knowledge base and data database and how some of that information is used together. Then that person can be empowered to really use AI in a way that they can trust. Because let's face it, I mean, we can't always trust what AI says and does. It does hallucinate. It does give bad information. So it's all about learning how to ask the right questions and how to trust yet verify.
Wow, you said it. And we're still, it's new. Think of AI. Someone told me this, and it's so important. Think of AI that it was more or less born on the world stage only a year ago. And it has kind of the intelligence of it in its species, in its world, of maybe a 3-year-old. So of course the 3-year-old is going to make mistakes. It's not even at a 5, it's not even at a toddler stage yet. So it has the propensity for precision, like Michael talked about, but it's not completely precise yet because it doesn't know how to work with us. It's just starting to understand this human world a little bit. And we'll see where this goes. But that was very, very interesting. I'm going to go over to Eric now. You come off mute, introduce yourself, let us know about what you've got going on. But we want to get, because this is a very important question. How can AI be used to personalize and improve employee training and development? You're still on mute.
Yeah, see, I got used to speaking with software that actually recognizes when I speak, that has a little bit intelligence, so it's unmute me. I'm Arik. I run a small, a bit of a different advisory team, and we just launched 3 weeks ago a Center of Excellence exactly tackling that specific question. It's a Center of Excellence to try to understand and close the gap between reskilling and education. And I see more and more organizations today realize that they cannot count on the traditional education systems because it's, let's be honest, so much backwards and teaching us what it has been teaching us, 100 years ago. And looking into the future, there is a huge gap between, all of us, whatever we study in university in about strategy or about engineering, even if it was 5 years ago, just go 5 years ago, it's really not relevant anymore. But we still got stuck there. Think about the fact that most leaderships in organization today is above the age of 55. It's really, really not relevant what they have in their head when it comes to how do you scale forward. And I think I want to jump on something that Charlene said, because AI is not accurate. AI is lying. Most humans do lie as well. Most humans do not have access to, I mean, as long as AI is going to be modeled after human, it will behave like human, which go back to the first question that you asked, productivity versus efficiency. AI is extremely efficient today, but it's far from being productive. And as long as there is not a model that can actually, create a full synchronous between humans, between employees and technology, it will keep being efficient. We can fire, I mean, someone mentioned here that because of these technologies, we are firing a lot of people. Yes, we do, but we are creating just better efficiency models, not new productivity models. And that's the challenge that I see organizations have today. We do live in a bling reality. And even, in this conversation, we're using an AI, but ask the 1,000 people in the street what is an AI, you will get 1,000 different questions. As long as we don't have a philosophical backbone, nothing that we build on it is really matter or scalable or sustainable or is going to make it more resilience. We need to stop the bling and ChatGPT. I wanted because McKinsey said I should have it. No. Why do you need? What is your core business? And I'm trying to work with schools today. A lot of teachers are abandoning the education systems because they're saying, hey, in 5 years, ChatGPT is going to replace me. I need to find a new job. But you have a 20 years of knowledge of being a teacher. You have a 20 years of knowledge of being an engineer. How do we create a better partnership that is focused on productivity, not efficiency, that can help you to extend, makes you better engineer, better teacher? The companies that will be able to crack this formula and educate their employees using that way, or educate the AI using the employees and help the employees extend. It's the Centaur model more than the Borg model. That is the most important task for organizations today, to create these partnerships, to go back to the old concept of digital twins and realize how important digital twins are for workforce development and focus on productivity rather than efficiency, and stop confusing between the two terms, because I see it all the time.
You're exactly
Yeah.
right. And I'm glad
Can
you
I-
brought it up in those terms, because
Can I
it's an
jump in?
augmented reality, not a replacement technology, right?
Exactly.
We're going to move over and let Hubertus, I love this name, Hubertus von Rome. Oh my God. We got to hear from Hubertus, right? What are the ethical considerations in implementing AI in workplace decision making? And excuse me if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
You did a pretty good job. I was wondering how you were dealing with the name, but no, absolutely, I recognize myself. So
Good.
Grand, thank you. Now, so I'm Hubertus. I'm a trained lawyer, European lawyer, which in the context of regulation, which we may touch on, is an important aspect. But then turned manager. So I've been a manager in leadership in tech companies for the last 20 years. And with data sharing solutions, we do accompany decision makers in what we call removing the hurdles for transforming their organizations into human-centric digital organizations. And the hurdles that we remove are typically always the same in a way. There are legal, regulatory issues or technology issues or more and more organizational issues. So we try to literally help them maneuver through those. But I'm going to get to the question straight away. So what are the ethical considerations in implementing AI in workplace decision-making? I would love to start with one word, and that is trust. The flip side of trust is I think today is fear. It may change, but at the moment, what I see, what we see, is that a lot of the workforce, and Eric, you just alluded to that as well, in the teaching environment. I think a lot of people are uncertain what the future brings. They are therefore reluctant to embrace change. They fear for their jobs in the first place. And that is, I mean, if you ask, there was a report recently that I think 78% of European companies have already invested or heavily invested into AI. And when asked, what do you do with it? About 20%, or some of them say, we're going to replace, automate some of the jobs. And they say that, and that obviously is the wrong thing to do. So there's a lot of fear in Europe, I think, in general, around AI taking jobs, and therefore trust building is very, very important. I think it's a blessing. AI will be a blessing for the workplace, simply because it will also help us, certainly in Europe, to deal with the demographics. So the workers at the workplace, they have a lot more on their desk, and it will increase because the demographics are not in their favor. More work for less people. So, and that's where AI comes in. I think if we structure it correctly, it will be a huge help. And it will help decision making there as well. And therefore, if we build a trusted environment, which is based on the principle human first when we design, then AI, and human last when we present AI-based processes. We always need a human eye or ear or both to look at it and make the final decision at the workplace.
This is so important. Very important discussion, balancing the world of business and the world of humanity, what that's going to look like. We all understand, or maybe we should understand, that the biggest cost typically in a business is labor. So when they start looking at that and you're like, wow, how can I reduce my labor? Even though you're talking about people. So my question to business is, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. So we've got to really understand, how do we utilize the technology in the most efficient way? Otherwise, there won't be anyone there to buy your product or service. So we've got to understand that. And we don't want to, create an immense leisure class. I want to go back over here to my first. There she is. If you don't mind, and answer this question here: how can businesses leverage AI to foster a more inclusive and diverse work environment? And remember, as you answer, anyone here can then chime in if they would like, but I'd like to hear what your perspective is.
Sure. So I think that there's a couple of different ways. So there's the more obvious ways where, there's language assistance that is more accessible now. People learn in different ways. And I think that there's more options in training, addressing how people learn and then giving them a solution for that. I think that it's just a lot more accessible now. If you're in a company that prioritizes that, I think as far as that's where the inclusive part of it, there's probably, just like the basic things where it's really easy to hop on a call that's, you can add subtitles just right away for someone that's maybe like hearing impaired or something like that. There's a lot of different ways you can address it. As far as more diverse, I know that we do go into some questions about hiring, HR, talent acquisition and stuff, but I think that you can rely on things that maybe you've overlooked, as far as diversity and making sure. I think that you have access to a database, like say there's a certain demographic of people that are not on LinkedIn, and that's not necessarily where you would want to source them. You would want to go to a different type of job board, that you could find that information and access that a lot easier and quicker, making it so that you are more diverse, in not just hiring, but also just who you're inviting to speak on a podcast with, just in any capacity, really. I think that that's one of many ways, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I guess
No,
that
I
would be
think you're speaking to something. I see a lot of head nodding there. Is that I like the accessibility point you brought up, especially when it comes to knowledge, just basic knowledge and information. how quickly you can get that information. It's not like AI is thinking for you; it's giving you quick data that you can make a better decision or be more informed about. And I think those are things that we. Does anyone want to chime in on this particular question?
I really like this question, Grant, because when you think about inclusive, just in a word, there might be somebody who was pigeonholed into a specific skill set because they weren't really given an opportunity. And I've learned, like, for instance, I could have never created some of the social media content that I've used for some of my recent projects had it not been for AI. For so many reasons, there weren't images out there. There weren't like the right blend of, the people that I wanted, the diversity of the humans that I wanted to use in my images, in addition to what they're doing. Like, there might be images of this particular type of person doing this particular type of activity, but maybe I wanted to show another person doing that activity. That would show people that, look, you don't have to live by societal norms. You can like break the box. And I think that AI really gives a lot of people that are shy and not comfortable expressing their true talent palette the ability to break that box. And I think AI is really not a time to be afraid. Fear is not a real thing. I think it's the ultimate reality that's manufactured, right? I think it's a time to be inspired. We can stay away from, let's face it. We all know that they are concerns, but they don't have to make us fear challenging ourselves. And I think this is an opportunity for all of us as humans to kind of rebrand ourselves and become diverse in our own personal skill set and ability to communicate.
I agree with you. This is an opportunity. We've got to get more a holistic vision of our human world as we look at it. If you were, let's just say, a being from another dimension or planet, and they looked at Earth, they're not going to divide it up the way we do. They're going to just see a variety of human beings and in various different stages, and they look at it as a holistic view. You can't have this one particular type of human being speaking for all of humanity, because that's not realistic, right? We're all at different levels of our evolutionary status and what we do in life, but that thing AI will give us, if we train it right, that a lot of people are talking to, train it right, it'll give a holistic view of things and not a skewed view. I want to ask Michael how he feels about the challenges of maintaining a human-centric approach in an AI-enhanced workplace.
All right, I'd love to give the answer, but first I'd like to address something that Eric said. We're talking about the word AI, because AI actually isn't just a year old. AI is really old. They've been doing it for over a decade. I think what's new is generative
Actually, it's
AI.
going back all the way to the Greek. The Greeks created Talos, the bronze, that's the first AI we created as humans.
Right. And exactly. So, we've been using AI for a long time. We've been using it for Netflix, for Amazon. No one's complained about, even for GPS. What people are all we're talking about this now is because it's the first time that this type of technology is impacting people. And it isn't just making our life easier, which is how it does it on Netflix and Amazon. It actually can augment your skills, but, inversely, it could potentially take what you're doing and make you obsolete. So I guess in terms of the challenges, as you're saying, there's a balance, right? There's incredible efficiency that's gained. BCG did a study saying how much efficiency can be gained, but then you have to balance that on, meaningful human roles and interactions. So those are the two things. The other thing, which is over-reliance on AI, which I find, I use it a lot. And I think now is the most important time for a traditional liberal arts education. So I think a lot of people have basically said, they want to be more vocationally trained. They want to go straight for be an engineer, or when they graduate, they want to be able to do X, Y, or Z. However, with this technology, it can do so much that we can kind of take a step back and let it do all the thinking for us, and let it do all the decision making for us. But that is a huge challenge, because if we let that happen, then bad things potentially can happen, and there'll be a decrease in critical thinking. So we need to make sure that people need to focus while we lose the automation, all the, like the rote things that we do. People need to spend more time thinking and challenging themselves. Also, these tools need to be user-friendly. They need to be accessible to everybody, regardless of their technical skill. And then the other thing is, now if we use this AI for human resources or looking to hire people, areas that were traditionally sort of just human, driven by empathy, can now actually be automated and kind of seem sort of soulless. So we need to figure out how we're going to do that. And then I guess the other thing is just, was mentioned earlier, is just fear. We have to, in organizations, we have to address the employee fears and resistance to this technology because of change in the workplace, change in the department, change in their security. So all these things together are huge challenges which we need to address as organizations need to address, and also us as a society of what we want to be.
I agree with you that we're being challenged as a species, as humanity, about becoming more mature. And if we don't mature, it can lead to a lot of problems. I think life is asking us to be more intelligent, to be more conscious about what we are doing. And this is raising our level of awareness on a lot of different levels. I'm going to ask this next question. Anybody can chime in. And I'm looking at Eric because I can see his face. How does AI impact the mental health and well-being? Because this is what we're talking about. You got AI, we talk about fear. This is happening. It's new. There's a lot of people like, oh my God, what's happening now? They can, people think they're losing their job or have to change. Change is inevitable. So how does mental health and well-being of employees are affected by AI?
I mean, every technology, when it's just been introduced to the market, I mean, I usually put a line and it says like, this is creepy, this is not creepy. Every technology, when it's first introduced, is creepy. How do you think mainly women, because the dishwashing machine was the first original dishwashing machine was marketed to women mainly because they thought it's a good thing to target women, as they were doing the dishes at that time, and they says it will give you so much more time to yourself, and they completely didn't realize that the only time a woman had that time for herself was doing the dishes, and so they completely needed to change the marketing. But that thing of like removing the time scared the hell out of a lot of women then. How did we reacted when the first cars were introduced and replaced horses? We were scared like hell. When industrial revolution, urbanization scared the hell out of farmers. We do have a bit of a difference right now because we do have tools that are capable of performing cognitive functions rather than physical functions. And that right now, when I talk to people, everyone is scared. And we said fear is a construct, but it's not. Everyone is scared.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, and I could see a very good use case of AI, for instance, specifically in the example of impacting mental health and well-being. Imagine if you used AI to learn how one of your employees answers and responds to emails, and you could see that there's a pattern of passive aggression, or just maybe using words that could be they could be counseled. So learning about problems before they occur is one of the things we don't talk about enough with AI. You can become more proactive. You can learn signals. You can understand patterns and learn to work as a team better. AI could be a part of your team. In my company, we learn I have several businesses that I operate in with a team, and AI works with all of us. And AI can be used to learn about all of the teammates on that team and help the team to work harmoniously. So there are things we don't talk about enough, that the human brain is creative and AI can be used in so many different ways. The use cases are pretty profound.
Let me say this. You introduced me to something that was so profound in AI as far as a use case when it comes to health, is that there's now retinal scans that can look at you and tell if you have some type of ailment that you may or may not be aware of. Just give us a minute and talk about that.
So what you're talking about is a device that was designed by a company called OptiCare AI. Shout out to OptiCare. And they design. A lot of people don't know how telling the eye is to the rest of your body. I am, my whole history is in the vision industry. I'm very passionate about it. And it's just a great opportunity to understand using the power of AI. Usually you'd have to invest and you'd have to visit an eye doctor's office to get this information, but they're developing screening devices now. So people that don't have access to that sort of care can get this overall health and wellness report. But then they take it a step further. They use the AI to take that retinal image and not only talk about what they're learning about that person from, it'll, for instance, one of the first things it says is your eye says that you're 80, but you're really only 40. So that's a bad sign. So you could be like, wow, that's like really visible. Like people believe what they can see. If they see that, they're like, wow, maybe I don't have to wait till something goes wrong to become proactive about my health. So that concept of visualization, and even just to real quickly take it a step further, I talked to the founder and I said, what are you doing to protect people's information? And he talked about very specifically how the retinal scan isn't associated with any personal information. So you can't tie one, piece of information to the other. So these information systems, and there's people here that are probably much more qualified to talk about this than I am. It's a big responsibility when you start playing with these technologies to really make sure you're protecting people and you're not accidentally creating, bad wormholes for bad things to happen. I'll turn it over to one of the data, experts to talk about that.
If I may, you said something very interesting. We need to be very careful of not crossing lines here. It's very hard for us as humans to understand context. AI simply do not understand context. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to ask AI to judge something that it cannot put in the right context, we will be in huge problems. Mm-hmm. On top of that, everything that is digital is absolutely not secure, and it's going to be breached at a certain place. They can say, we don't associate any of the informations, but hey, I came with my phone to do that, that scan. So, you do 1 + 1, you can connect the dots. We need a much more sophisticated policies when it's coming. And in Europe, I can see a little bit more progress than happening in the US right now, but we need much more sophisticated policies when it comes to privacy and safety and private security than there are at this moment of time, especially when you're talking about having an AI analyzing email of employee, which doesn't have a context. That is a very, very, very thin line to walk on.
The pros and the cons. The pro, we can get a better understanding of our health. The obviously the con there is, if it's not secured information, it can be problematic depending on how it used. And it's understanding the capability of AI as it's built today when it comes to content. It's a machine. I don't like the conversations that I've had in certain other forums where they look at AI as some form of consciousness. And I'm like, I don't think so.
It's a tool.
I'm pretty sure it's just predictive analytics, which is very, very good. I want to ask Hubert this question. What roles can AI play in facilitating remote and hybrid work model? Now, we've seen from COVID that, hey, you know what? We can support a worldwide remote workforce. Did it work? Didn't it work? And how can AI roll out now since we know that it's possible?
Well, I grew up still in a world where to learn, I had to go to a library to get information. So remote and hybrid wasn't really on the agenda at all. Then the internet arrived, and information was so much more easily accessible. For my kids, that's already a given. And I think we're now entering a new phase where it's not only the information, but a lot more interpretation that is possible and conclusions that can be drawn remotely and in hybrid models. So in that sense, remote working will become more efficient, and hybrid, it's the same in a way, a similar approach. I do want to also raise a moment of caution, similar to Eric. I think as much as we gain freedom through AI's capabilities in remote and hybrid work, love the flexibility myself, but we're humans and we need social interaction. And I think it's the risk that we forget that we cannot replace the social interaction at the workplace or in the social environment. We cannot replace that by the ease and beauty of AI results. I think we have to be very, very cautious, and in particular with generations, I'm thinking about my kids that grow up almost already with a different DNA, because from the very early days they've worked in this. COVID made it worse, in an environment where the social interaction per se has changed from the physical presence to some digital presence. Yeah? We had, for me, we're in the typical pendulum situation. It has gone too far, and that's why the question, I would rephrase it: what are the advantages and concerns when we think about AI and remote and hybrid work models?
Man, very, very, when we don't know the determinants, because if we're spending more time in front of our screens and we're not physically moving, because we do dwell in this physical body and it needs to, you've got to feed it and you've got to exercise it. Otherwise, there will be, the effects of that. And this is a learning curve. We're learning how to operate in this world of advanced technology. And I talked a lot. I've been in information technology 20, 25 years. We are now working with intelligent technology. So it's a new IT. It's not just information. It's a form of intelligence. What does that look like? How do we now operate in it? And we'll fall in love with it for a little bit, but then it'll find its place, and then we're finding that and what that's going to look like, right? And this is a perfect question for my partner to my left here, because he's talked about HR processes without bias and in talent acquisition. Is it better or worse? I mean, is it, if it's to a point earlier I heard, if the database, remember, is still utilizing the database, a large language model is a database, and if that database is full of good, bad, and indifferent information, will it have bias or not? Maria?
I think we need to be careful with this one, right? So I think there are a lot of upsides to what you can do with AI and talent acquisition and HR. And I think that also humans haven't mastered the ability to not have biases. So I think that AI is humans that are creating it, and I think that it's not without bias. I think that we can bring it closer and closer to perfect, but it's not ever going to be perfect. And I think that it can be really helpful. I think in departments and subjects as such with HR, I think we just need to be really careful and conscious of it, because I think that, like I said before, it can catch things that we're overlooking. It gives us, but are those databases that it's pulling from bias? So I think that we just need to be careful, and we just need to be aware that it's not perfect, and that it can be a very powerful tool, or it could probably go in the opposite direction too. We just need to tread lightly with that.
I 100% agree. They're already using AI. They wouldn't even call it AI. I don't know what they called it before, but they've had these databases in hiring in which they look at tons and tons of resumes to fit with their particular requirements. And that's how they determine who gets an interview and who does not. Before you get to the human level, you've got to deal with the technology level, and some people have learned how to put in the certain keywords, certain things to get to, I don't want to call it trick the system, but at least get a better advantage. Some people it works, some people it doesn't, but you're working with that layer of machine language instead of human language before you can get to the next human level. And I think that can be problematic. You can get sued for things like that because there's inherent biases that are there. We've only got a few minutes. We've got actually 5 minutes. I want each of you to have closing thoughts. Give me 1 minute about how you felt about what we're talking about and what you want to leave the audience with. And we'll start with Michael.
Well, thank you. So my closing remarks. So overall, I think this technology is very powerful. It can enhance productivity, but I think to what Maria just said, there's inherent bias, and we need to be aware of bias. And as humans, we're even unaware of our own bias. So that's a tricky thing in its own. But it's really the human plus the AI that's the future. But if we over-rely on the AI, which I said before, our critical thinking will go down, and that's going to be a terrible loop in which we won't be able to manage this incredible technology we have made. So therefore, it is really important to always keep everything we decide, keep the human in the loop. That's what I have to say.
Sounds good. Charlene, you're on mute.
Thank you for having me on this panel today. It was great to hear some perspectives from everyone here. My closing, suggestion is learn what's going on, learn how AI is being used, learn what you should do and shouldn't do, learn ways to apply it, learn how to associate with others. And if you're somebody who's an expert in this field, learn how to connect with those that are really trying to, get a full understanding, because there really needs to be a better community approach to this where people with different perspectives share their ideas, because I think it'll be a long time, if ever, considering how fast this all is moving, before there's anything we could ever remotely consider to be a standard.
I totally agree. Eric, would you like to chime in?
That's a big question. Think about the automotive industry with the rush for electrification. In my point of view, the automotive industry made a full circle and went back to the days of horses, just the night of the great manure crisis in London. We went to the same place. AI is right now making a full circle for humanity and taking us all the way back to the day Julius Caesar stood on the bank of the Rubicon and says, am I going to cross it or not going to cross it? But we are not there alone. Next to us, there is technology. And if technology is going to cross the Rubicon alone, God help us. We need to find a way to hold hands and cross the Rubicon together, because we are just in the beginning stage. Everyone likes the bling bling to say, look at AI, look, we finally reached this destinations. No, we are in the first days. We are just infants, and we need to step back and realize that. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very tricky for us to move forward.
100% agree. Umberto, you like to chime in, leave us with your parting wishes? You're on mute, sir.
Sure. I'm going to add a sort of bottom-up view to it. If we really want to make it work, AI at the workplace, because that was our theme, I think there are a lot of people that are absolutely up for it. I deal a lot in projects with employees in public and private organizations. So the best way is to actually give them an opportunity to try it out. So my plea here is really give people an opportunity to very easily try it out. Let's create as many very, very easy to access and good to understand and so playgrounds, little labs. Every company should actually embark on that and let people play with it. That also takes away the fear. And certainly the older generations, it speeds up the adaptation of the great things that AI can do. And on the flip side, I think if we do it right, we will also get a lot of interesting voices that will help us to get the balance between functionality and ethics right.
Sounds good. We are out of time. I want to thank everybody for joining the panel today on Gatherverse AI Summit 2024. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your participation.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Greetings and welcome once again to Gatherverse AI Summit 2024. We're certainly happy that all of you are still with us and that you're still on this path with us as we continue to be able to express and explore the understanding of where we're at this intersection of humanity, emerging technologies, moreover, AI and how it operates within the universal metaversal ecosystem of what we're looking at. We've had some incredible discussions so far today, this morning, this evening, tonight, wherever you may find yourself from in this world as you're viewing. Shout out to all the different continents that are with us today, all the different cities and towns and villages and places, just that you would never expect for those to be able to gather around and to be able to sojourn with us as we move forward in talking about these generative pre-trained transformers and large language foundational models that we have found in the palm of our hands, if you will, in this present time. It's a very interesting and very different time when we start to look at the developmental phase of how this integrates into our lives. Might we start to rethink on all different types of structures, not only of societal structures, but the very ethos of how we work, the very bedrock foundation is changing. You know, we come from the farming revolution and industrial age, 1 and 2 revolution, and in the information age. But what did we expect in the information age when we received information? It's with the great consideration that when we did receive information, it automatically catapulted us, pole vaulted us into a new age of way of work when it comes to technological development. And so much so, it was moving at such an accelerated pace. There are some of you that are here that remember this, that it got to the point where we were operating startups with industrial age standards because we hadn't fully transitioned, which led to the great Silicon Valley bubble that burst. Then some years later, and particularly here in the US, we found ourselves in the Great Recession. And with this Great Recession, what progenerated out of this in this regenerative and degenerative state moved us into the applications renaissance, where we saw devices and platforms like the iPhone and Android come to scene. Then what's next from the applications renaissance is now all of a sudden humanity has more tools than we've ever had before, and it's democratized access of these applications. And it's no wonder that we have found ourselves with the type of technology that, for all intents and purpose, weren't supposed to be here, but they've arrived on our shores. And we have so much more that's being added because we're only at narrow AI. We're not at full AGI. We're not at super intelligence, theory of mind, self-aware, cosmic AI. There's a lot more to go, and we can barely keep up. But our next roundtable discussion is one of critical importance, because without it, we have none of this. We've assembled a roster of minds, if you will, to talk about the rise of generative AI and decoding AI for education. This is a very important discussion, very relevant and very necessary. Some may say, well, I'm out of college. What does it mean for me? It means everything for you. Because we live in an ecosystem that's multi-generational. And if the ones that are here today cannot build the tools and the learning lessons and the apparatus for those to receive the baton, we are symbiont in our relationships when it comes to the united global workforce. If one falls, then we all are impacted. If one fails to be able to uphold, then we all suffer, either marginally or of great size. May our gather be well. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Roundtable here at Gatherverse 2024 AI Summit, The rise of generative AI and decoding AI for education. Audience, we're certainly happy to have all of you here today at Gatherverse.live and the multiple places that we're streaming and broadcasting across the internet, if you will, if that's still even a thing that exists in this generative world of technology. We're so happy to have all of you that are with us, even in our small corner of the Gatherverse world, our YouTube stream, where people are chatting, expressing, sharing, and LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, X, and elsewhere. Panel, we have a lot of wood to chop, if you will. We have a lot of places to go, and we only ever really have so much time to be able to do it. So as we move forward, what I want to do is go person to person, but I really want to keep this at an accelerated fashion. And I want you to begin talking about what is your present focus when it comes to AI and education. But I want you to introduce yourself and then answer the question. Eli, kick it off, please.
Certainly. So, hello, everybody. You can call me Eli or Ellie. I'm a soon-to-be graduate from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in data analytics and computational social science. My current focus right now is on advocating for technoliteracy wherever and whenever possible. I believe that technoliteracy is both the bridge and barrier for both consent and ethical production and development of technology.
Thank you, Ellie. Alan?
Hi, my name is Alan. I'm with Studio Bahia. We design therapies in virtual reality. We're using AI at this time for in a variety of ways with educational institutions, specifically research institutions. And so I hope to talk about that today. Thank you.
We'll be talking much more about that, Alan. Thank you very much. David, you're up. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. David Lockett, the School of Applied Computational Sciences at Meharry Medical College, where we're advancing scholarship and computational thinking in 3 realms of innovating, connecting, and serving. We've got a vast repertoire of projects focusing specifically on the NSF, expand AI, funding opportunity, and several opportunities revolutioning artificial intelligence and computational learning.
Welcome back, David. And Meharry, it's such a fine establishment, an institute of education, if you will. Dr. Haman Chandran, or Dr. Kanan, please.
Hi, Christopher, and thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. I am Dr. Hemachandran Kannan. I'm the Director of AI Research Center, and also I'm the Associate Dean for the School of Business at Watson University. So we are making this AI chatbot and metaverse as a new innovation pedagogy for our students to learn the complex topics in gaming way. That's what we are implementing it, and we are doing it for each courses, and we are building in the course curriculum. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kanan. And Jamal, we're so happy to be able to have you here with our first gather with you, especially when on education. You and I have had some very incredible and very mind-opening discussions, if you will. Will you share with us some of those things and give us the outlook on who you are?
Sure. Jamal Thomas. I co-founded Black on Black Education with my daughter, who's a teacher in the South Bronx. Our focus at Black on Black Education is making sure that the education system becomes much more responsive to students' needs, to their curiosities, to the challenges that they want to solve in the world. As an individual, I'm now focused way more in on artificial intelligence literacy as well as futures literacy, helping kids to take a look and understand their place in the world today, and the place in the world that they can actually create.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jamal. Roundtable, our panel. I tell you now, we're going to stay scripted and off scripted. We're going to be on track, off track. We're in the forest, we're in the meadow. We're jumping all around. We need to, because that's what time it is. Ellie, help me to understand something. You're in the trenches of UMass right now as we speak. You're in there. You're in the warfare of education. When we talk about AI, you're seeing what's happening as a real-time living example. What does it look like to be a student in 2024 in January in this present era of AI?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think right now it is a back and forth of the ethics of using AI in general from a student perspective. And I'm hearing a lot of conversations from different coalitions. Just last year, the 5 colleges, which is the University of Massachusetts, Amherst College, Smith College, Mount Holyoke, and Hampshire, as well as Williams College, have come together to create an AI coalition amongst libraries to talk about the ethics of giving access to AI or why students use AI. And so I'm part of those coalitions talking about why are students using AI. For me personally, I've used AI mostly for my own curiosity. For example, I just took a quantitative analysis course and I had a lot of fun taking multiple different AI tools and giving them the same prompt that I was expecting to answer and seeing how each one came out with a completely different answer when it's just math. So, from a student perspective, many are using it in order to deal with the workload. From my perspective, I'm just being a nerd about it and exploring the ways that we are generating responses for our innovators of the future.
It's a very fascinating consideration. And let me do a quick follow-up with that, Ellie. Has it been dramatic in change for 2023 leading into 2024, or has it been more subtle in this transition?
I would say subtle in terms of actual workload or in the ways that it's being used. In terms of job hunting, definitely more dramatic because there's so much more stress about how much AI do I know? How can I use AI to help me in the job hunting process? So it's a very interesting switch from in school, it's the same progression of how can I use this to get my essay done. But in terms of job hunting, it's how can I learn as much as I can about this thing or learn what role is about to be replaced by AI.
And I think this catalyzes it justifies the reason for new education, new educational settings that we're seeing, Jamal, new ventures are going off and rethinking and reimagining education outside of these incredible educational institutions that we see. And you are doing just that. You ventured off into a new space, a new venture, because you and I know that the importance of emerging technologies and the acceleration therein is so critically vast that most people, even technologists, are in need to go back to becoming students to some degree, Jamal.
You're 100% right. I mean, we live in a time where change is occurring at such a rapid pace, but we're human beings who don't, like change. And to me, it's, I say to people all the time, civil society is not promised. And if we don't get this education thing right, if we don't stop graduating people who just don't have the skills to live in today's world, I fear for what's going to happen in society. And if we do pick things up and say, I love history. I love history class, but why don't we have future class? Why don't we let kids who are sitting around today saying, I'm just not with what I'm being taught. I'm not going to do it. Wasn't doing it last year. I wasn't doing it 10 years ago. And I'm not going to be doing it 10 years from now if we continue with this system. But if you show me, oh, wow, artificial intelligence is going to do all of these things. I want to watch the Jetsons. I don't want to watch the Flintstones. I want to see where things are going, not where they have been. And you show me what that is. Now today, I have a different understanding of my place in the world. I have a different understanding of what I'm actually coming to school for. And now I'm engaging around my curiosities in a way that I think that what AI is going to do is personalize things so that it's much more choose your own adventure. We can move not away from pedagogy, but towards pedagogy where things are self-directed. We understand what each student really is enjoying, what it is that they want, and we follow that. If we do that, I'm hopeful. If we don't, I'm very much not.
It's a very interesting consideration. Thank you for sharing, Jamal. Dr. Kanan, I'm coming to you because I want to understand something when it comes to, and as it was alluded, and it's expressed earlier by Louis Rosenberg, who was on our first roundtable discussion with Dr. Furness this morning, if you will, at least in Silicon Morning PST. When we talk about the ecosystem of information, disinformation, misinformation, it's a really big deal when we look at it on the collegiate or academic level, because we may find ourselves in a situation, audience, where we're giving whole entire lectures, whole entire educational courses are being developed on misinformation, and to the recipient or to the deliverer of this information, she or he had no consideration. They had no consideration that it was misinformation in the first place. And so it gets handed down from person to person. I have a real concern with this, Dr. Kannan. What are your concerns and considerations when it comes to this?
Yeah, the thing is, like in 2024, many students have been using a lot of AI tools. But the thing is, like, AI can generate the content, but the humans need to validate that whether the content which is generated by the AI is right or wrong. So that is what the human intervention is must. Where apart from this, the one more thing which I want to say, this is like, when we implement those kind of things, like for example, if we are giving an assignment to the students to write some assignments, but the thing is, like, we doesn't know whether the students are using some AI tools to create the content for that, and they're coming and submitting to us or not. So what we are doing in this is, like, we created some AI assessment policies at Watson University. So that will help, that will guide the students that how to use AI in an ethical way, where there will be no bias, and they will be in it, they will follow the ethics in how much AI content they should use it to write the assignment, so that there will be no misinformation will be happen, and it is validated by the students, and it is validated by the faculty who is going to evaluate these assignments.
Dr.
So
Kannan, I had to do a follow-up with that because it's really important. I'm sure that many of us concur. I certainly concur. Not that you needed me to, but I concur with what you just said. But my bigger question and concern is, have you begun to see this process of human validation? Has there been implementation of processes and methods that have contributed towards this way of thinking?
yeah, it's absolutely, uh, human intervention is must in this. Without that, we cannot validate AI. That I am sure about it. Because if you take ChatGPT will generate the content because it has been trained till 2021. Apart from that, if you ask any details, it won't give. And even if you ask to write some article, and if you ask to give some reference to that, those references will be generated. But if you cross verify those references with the real time, it's not validated, it's a wrong one. So those things we need to look into it, and we need to validate those things, then only we can use it for writing some journals or something which you want to learn for it.
I
So
have a
that
real hope. I have a real hope coming on the heels of that and piggybacking, if you will, on what you just shared. And thank you, Dr. Kannan. I have a real hope for academia as a whole, across the stratosphere, if you will, that I think they should open up to a cloud consistency of information on how to tackle this as a whole. It shouldn't be a single variant, if you will, or single one institution tackling this one problem for themselves, because it's shareable, it's relatable, and might we open source universal understanding when it comes to understanding the nativity and the etymology, and to some degree the beginnings of where content originates from, to maintain the integrity of the current disposition of that content itself. We'll put a pin in that for a second. Alan, I'm jumping over to you. David, you're going to be right on. But Alan, we need to go and talk about the personalized learning experience for students, not just the students that are here in Silicon Valley that are eating good every night, roofs over their heads. We're not going there now. We're going to talk about all the students in the world, the ones, the haves and the have-nots, the ones that can afford a decent education because their parents are well-to-do, which is great, and the ones that cannot, and the ones that will not have this type of access to what we have. And I'm not talking about even to the poverty of what we see here in the American ghettos, also in other places where ghettos don't even exist, where barely anything exists. You've been in some of those trenches, Alan, with some of the work that you've dedicated your career path to, especially when it comes to education. How are we going to be able to personalize these experiences for those that are out there that don't even understand completely what, even as Dr. Kannan just mentioned, the Chat GPTs, Bards, the Geminis of the world? How do we give great access to them? And when we do, what does that personalized experience and might it look like?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. I'm grateful to have lived in 10 countries and backpacked some 80 countries. I worked at the World Bank at a college, which is international development. And so I think I can share a little bit of how we're using it in a variety of projects, and how eventually it'll make its way into low-income, middle-income countries, which is really the challenge of access, right? How do we get people to be able to access AI from these settings? And in our experience, we have 15 high school interns. And what they've done is very instructive in how they're using AI to create tools. And I think our panel, we're not as young. So we're still quite institutionalized people. We come from PhD programs. We're born out of that very institutional structure. And I think if we take a look at how younger people are exercising themselves with the use of AI, their creativity, generative AI, it lends a lot of insight, and it's probably due to the freshness of their creativity. As soon as we have interns go into college, they lose their creativity. It's like night and day. If they're 15, 16, we just took high school interns all over the place, but if they're 15, their creativity is off the charts. So there's something in education and the institutions that we all belong to or went through that have crushed creativity. And I think that AI in itself shows its greatest potential when you have a group of about 5 people that are highly creative. And you can see this in medical research. We work with different hospitals and institutions, but when you see a small team of highly creative medical researchers, in the last few years, the production was quite low as far as publications and so forth. But and other people published a lot more incremental research. I think if you follow some of those models of teams of 5 that are highly creative people who want to learn every day, it's where you start seeing, at least that's how we've started to see the greatest productivity, the greatest advancements, and the greatest research.
But Alan, as a follow-up, what about those that just do not have access to any of that at all, that are in the trenches far from these shores where tech is being developed? I think we get a sense, and Alan, I know that you're with me on this, and panel, I know that you're with us on this, and audience, I know that you're with us on this. And the reality is where we're building today, we see 60 miles out from where we have technological innovations cross continental, transmetropolitan, 60 miles out from that, any given tech destination is a whole different world. And my concern is, are we as technologists, as educators and learners and students ourselves, are we doing enough with great consideration for outside of our technical ecosystems, outside of our ecosystems of community, if you will, to be able to democratize and give access to these populations that have no idea of what's headed their way?
Yes, to answer your question, there's a number of conferences and initiatives around the world to be able to create greater access, and just access to the internet to begin with is revolutionary in itself. But we have a long way to go, and I think a lot of it, to be perfectly clear, there's a lot of international development around the world that is driven by Chinese development and the way they build infrastructure in countries in West Africa and Latin America. And I say it from an American perspective, they know how to build empire. And what they build is a lot of infrastructure that will probably have the most lasting impact in access by reduction of poverty. They're just very good at building infrastructure and doing it in a way that's reliable and in a way that's favorable to countries that take in these kind of approaches. Very strange of me to say this, but they're very good at it.
No, I can attest to that. I do know people in Africa that are in very interesting situations, and it's crazy to hear some of the things that they tell me about how much of a benefit it's been for Asian technology, if you will, to be able to help accelerate their lives. Ellie, we're going to get to you in just a moment, but David, I want to be able to come to where you're at, come into your living room, your office, wherever you're at. I need to get inside your mind for a moment and bring everybody with me, because I want to talk for a second about ethics, but I want to talk about it when it comes to the intersection of AI and education, because I have a real concern. You're dealing and doing incredible things at Meharry with NASA, and you're dealing with things when it comes to data. And my concern is when we talk about developing these large language foundational models, future forward, not just scraping the internet, but vertical focused models that are being developed. When we talk about who's in the room curating the data, I have a real concern that this data is not being curated from enough different cultures in this world, enough different people in this world, and that these machines that we're becoming more reliant on for access of information, we are subjecting all the people that didn't have the contribution to these data sets. We're subjecting them to a limited, finite amount of cultural input. My concern is with what you're seeing, with all the incredible work you're doing, what is the relationship between ethics, data, AI, and education, sir?
You know, that's a great question. That's one that we encounter daily, you know, whether it's working on NASA-funded projects or NSF or NIH-funded projects. When you look at these different AI methodologies and tools, these innovative tools, how are we enhancing them? How are we enhancing them for the learning experience for not only teachers, but for educators as well? But looking at the data, how is that data ethical? How are we making sure that everyone has a place and a seat at the table to make sure that the data meets the unique requirements of each and every project that everyone's working on? We look at things like individual needs. We look at preferences. How is that data tailored to the specific project? When we look at the different cultural groups, how are we ensuring that the instruction, that the approach, that the tools all have an integrated approach? So when you look at things like ethics, ethics is paramount and ethics is key. I'm glad you asked that question, because when we work on the ethics portion of that, we look at the content creation. We look at the personalized learning. We look at all of these different approaches that enable the AI tools and the methods to be not only fair, but to make sure that they're reasonable and everyone has a hand in the overall creation and the ongoing development.
If an XR headset can track my eyes with incredible precision, now this multimodal AI companion that's sitting in my living room and all of ours, it can track much more than just my eye movement. And the more that it becomes intelligent, if you will, artificially, now all of a sudden we lead into theory of mind. Not only the words is it conveying and taking it to the perceptron and doing all the things it's doing with the bat propagation algorithm and figuring itself out in the meanderings of this model, but now it's saying, I could read your expressions, your considerations, and then one day, this same AI audience will say, not only can I read you, but wait, I think I have feelings. I think that I have emotions. And it will begin to move and enable and act off of that. But with the consideration audience, that artificial intelligent thing is taking its cues and characteristics and culture from human intelligentsia. My concern is, which human is it gaining and garnering its inspiration from? We could put a pin in that. Ellie, run with it. You had something to share.
Yeah, I had multiple things, and I'm stringing my ideas together. So I think, firstly, everybody should read More Than a Glitch, which is a wonderful, fantastic book, which talks about a lot of the things that we're talking about right now. I recently read it in the book club for the Responsible Technology Coalition.
Wait, Ellie, who's the author of that so we can give due diligence to that?
More Than a Glitch by Meredith Browsard. Okay, my blur back. There we go. So
Thank you. Please proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think this book covers many important things, both in the fact that AI is math. That's why I use language mathematically when referring to it. It also talks about who's in the room when developing technology. I do agree that having creative people on the team is incredibly important, but it's also having people who either have the lived experience or who have dedicated their lives to understanding the various types of people who will be using the technology that will be released. And I think that is even more important. This develops even more so when we talk about technology education development, I feel like too often in conversations that I've had in the US, it's looking internationally of how other countries need support without looking locally. I am from the South Bronx, and the only reason why I know computer science is because a teacher threw out the curriculum and taught us all HTML in the 7th grade. And now I'm getting my master's in data analytics and computational social science. So I understand what that pivotal change looks like. I am also Ghanaian American, so first generation. My parents immigrated from Ghana, and I recently came back from Ghana, and I'm now helping cousins pursue master's degree in public policy, and I'm trying to look up what initiatives would be like. But first, I had to understand what it is like right now back home in Ghana. So I think from a both national and international perspective, you really have to take into account what the local community needs, what the local community is curious about. And from technology development, we really have to understand that we need to first, we really have to understand who's in the room, recognize it, say it out loud, and then improve it, fix it, and take responsibility for it every step of the way.
Ellie, I think it's just so extraordinary. One, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so extraordinary when you have leaders such as yourself that don't forget where they come from and they take that to move forward. Because sometimes we go so high off a mountain, we tend to forget where we come from and we become this completely different person. It is what it is, but you're taking some of that ancestral heritage with you and you're applying that to policy and all the other endeavors, even into our minds under the sound of your voice, what we just heard. I find that very powerful. Jamal, we're coming into you because I want to talk about this classroom and someone that's building education and educational school grounds, virtual or tangible, if you will. But I need to think about, when we think about how can educators ensure a balanced integration of AI into the classroom, because as it's been said already today about the human in the loop, making sure that we're not abstaining, because let's look at it for a second, audience. 2023, January, Q1, here's the headlines for education. We're not using education. We're not using AI in our classrooms. We're not letting our students use AI. Here comes spring 2023. Well, maybe we'll let them use a little bit of AI, just a little, but not too much. And here comes the end of summer 2023. We need to use this technology. We don't know how to use it, but it needs to be head on. Now, 2024, it's all up in the air, education, academia. So let's have a discussion where we're at today, not abstaining from this technology because we've taken in too much existential crisis from those that have no idea what they're talking about, but that's a whole different comment. But when we talk about it now, whether we like it or not, the relationship between human and AI has gotten closer than it's ever been. My question is this, Jamal. What does that relationship mean when it comes to balance in the classroom? And let me please, I beg you to add this caveat. When I was a kid, I was on the spectrum, ADHD, special education. Special education. The teachers cared for me more than what other standard normal teachers would, and we still care about our teachers. I just don't think that AI has the capability of caring for me like my second and third grade teachers did. I don't think it'll have the patience, and it certainly does not come from the neighborhoods where I came from as I lived in Germany, Texas, and California. Jamal, what does that relationship look like in the modern classroom, sir?
So I first want to give like a quick shout to Ellie, you know, in coming from the South Bronx, coming from a place where I've had a chance to be inside the classrooms. What I know is that brilliance and genius, that those things are everywhere. It's the opportunity that's not always there. And so you give people opportunity and they get an opportunity to shine, and salute to you for doing so, Ellie. In terms of the educators today, the challenge is that there's so much trash, like professional development and things like that, where teachers, you know, are like, it's another thing you want to give to me. And so you got to find ways to show them exactly how this is going to help. And there are teachers seeing. I was just at a great PD on Friday by AI for Education. So it's absolutely happening. But the educators have to learn, And what I'm excited about is they get an opportunity now to learn in conjunction with the young people, because educators don't know how to use it. Young people don't know how to use it. Why not sit down and actually learn how to use it together? Start to do what we should have been doing anyway, and now have interdisciplinary learning and intergenerational learning. So we're learning not just this, we're not sitting in a box and saying, okay, I'm in biology in 5th grade, and so I have to learn this. Like, nobody's brain works that way. If we want to learn all of these things, obviously things have to be scaffolded, but to introduce kind of AI 101 to teachers and students at the same time, that's something that I'm doing. And that's something that a lot of people are doing. And now the student gets to look up at the teacher and smile and see, wow, like the teacher is learning as well. I think that interaction, I've seen that interaction be one that helps to kind of improve upon the relationship, because if a teacher is just, do this and listen to me and things to that effect, then the students are not going to care to listen to them. If the teacher is sitting there next to the young person learning with them, that changes things. And the last thing I'll say on it is that this is already, that there's tools like Magic School and Comigo, where these things, they are helping teachers write rubrics and write lessons and all kind of things to that effect. So there's lots of time saving right away that give teachers the opportunity to sit down and go and look at the person across from them and actually have more engagement with the student versus engagement with the technology. So they're saving time and being able to create better relationships already, which I think can lessen the teacher shortage, because it gives them more of what they got into the industry for in the first place.
Thank you, Jamal. And Alan, I'm actually jumping over to you this one for a specific reason. I know some of your outreach work and what you've done when it's come to education and dealing with accessibility and accessible communities. It seems like right now in real time, the game is changing, where we could do more and use AI for good when it comes to getting greater access for those with disabilities. And we look at students, not just children, but students in adult education. So many people have just disrupted abilities that are debilitating and very difficult for them to be able to access information. But it seems to me that AI, I won't say it's a cure-all, but could serve as a bridge to be able to help some of this, even in remote locations. What are your thoughts on that, Alan?
Yes, I think there's a lot of potential, and we're probably at the height of all the possible positive psychology we could throw at it. But at the same time, we've had great developments in technology over the last 30 years, and we still have, whole parts of the United States that are pretty much wastelands. You have white ghettos in Ohio, black ghettos in Mississippi, here in Texas, Latino ghettos. And so we still had 1.5 million dead from the pandemic with all that technology. We still had 20 years of failed wars all over the world. We still had all sorts of bad judgment, even with all that technology we've developed over the last 30 years. So I think we have to kind of temper down as far as AI and its abilities and its capabilities. I think 10 years from now, we still will have those ghettos in the United States, and we still will have those problems. But I think as far as how it would impact us as access is concerned, you still need the same things that people needed before. You needed access to the internet.
That's right.
To be able to access. So if you don't have access to the internet at this time, what chance do you have of accessing AI? So we haven't even gotten to the point where we can fulfill access for the internet. Can we get there first, and then build upon that for access to AI?
And I want to do a follow-up, and thank you for sharing that with Alan. Dr. Kannan, I want you to follow up on that, because he brings up a very powerful point, that we're so headfast here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere around the world that we completely think that we've arrived when it comes to technological progress and development. And we certainly do look at our educational institutions that seem more solidified for the intake of this, but the world is much bigger than an academic and educational institution. And we realize that our educators have to teach our students so that they can go out to the highways and the byways and the forests and the mountains and to be able to teach what they've learned in these educational institutions. Dr. Kannan, but how does that add up when so much of the world hasn't even wrapped their mind around Wi-Fi, 5G, broadband, internet access? It seems to me that the challenge of the student is more than what they may have signed up for, yet it's arrived, and here we are what are the challenges when it comes to present day academics and educating our student educational force and preparing them to be able to go out into this AI era of world of work?
Yeah. So the first thing, which the previous question which you asked for Ellie and Jamal Thomas. So I just want to answer one more point to that. First thing
Please.
is like when we think about those things, that the thing is like the students and faculties need to be get trained on various AI tools. If they know how to use it, then the problem will get solved. So all education institutions first need to train the educators on various AI tools, how to use it and how to reduce their work burden, so that, like for example, to create the course outline, to create the curriculum, and to create some PowerPoint presentations, so that if they spend much time, because nowadays the faculties are taking much time in creating the PowerPoint presentations, then course curriculum building, those kind of things. So they can use the AI tool and they can complete all those tasks in a short time, and they can keep much more time to interact with the students and can get more trained on much on with the students, so that they can learn a lot of things from the faculty directly. That is one thing which I want to say. This coming to this AI driven analytics improvement curriculum development, where the thing Alan said, the thing is like uh, the people which we want to learn much things in that future. Yeah, absolutely, accepting to that. The thing is like we need to give the training, especially nowadays. If you see here, recently we connected with Johannesburg School of Business, University of Ghana. So they literally asking us, they need lot of workshops need to be conducted on AI. So we are supporting them, and they want Watson to be the knowledge partner in guiding them and monitoring them what kind of AI tools can be implemented for the students to work with that. And also the faculties are getting trained on how to do the literature survey, how to write an article using. So we are training on a lot of AI tools like litmap, uh, perplexity AI, then chat gpt on subscription as well as without subscription, how to use it. So in ethical way we are training those people, because all the peoples are not coming from technology aspect. So in that way we need to train all those people.
Right.
That is one thing. Second thing which I want to say about this broadband 5G and all. So in Watson we are creating a chatbots for each course, and for that you no need of any kind of internet, something like that. Once you install in your mobile, then you can use it for without internet, where if you ask any questions on the specific course, it will answer to you. You no need to completely read the study material from start to the conclusion. So simply what are the doubts you have, you just ask in the chatbot, it will answer to you. So that is what the trending technology is coming up into that. And we have signed an MOU with a Metalog company. It's a metaverse company. What they do in the sense, like if you want to build some course curriculum in the metaverse, where the people doesn't have the Oculus glasses to view in that. So we are creating in 3 platforms where the students and faculties can access the course curriculum not only with Oculus glasses, they can look into desktop, and also they can have access in mobile. So that is what the technology comes into the crucial role, where it makes very simpler to all the people across the globe. They can use it not only with Oculus, they can use in the mobile itself. That's what the technology now.
Let's run with that. Let's
Yeah.
run with that, David. Let's just run with that, because what Dr. Kanan just expressed was so appropriate for where we're about to head right now. So, audience, I hope you're with us. Let's lean in for a moment. Let's gather closer, because we're about to take it there for a second and really wrap our minds around what Dr. Kanan just expressed. Who teaches the teachers? Who teaches the teachers? Because Dr. Kanan just expressed, when it comes to educators, we have to educate them, but who teaches the teachers, and who teaches those that teach the teachers? What I'm getting at is this. This is a very interesting consideration when you just talked about a chatbot. We're not here to offer confusion, but please just walk with us for a moment, audience. Let's look at this for a second, David. Here we are in a situation where a chatbot is justified. Let's look at one of the biggest gainful employees, and let's say here in the United States, it's truck drivers, and let's say men are the majority of those drivers until they're not. The delivery system has never been more abundant and ubiquitous in this modern era than it's ever been. And right now, we still can't find enough people to drive the trucks because we got to have our DoorDash and Amazon deliveries. Here's the consideration. It now seems that it may be justified for a robot to take that place because of demand. And if humankind doesn't want to take that job, me as a truck driver or an owner of a truck driving company, I can now justify robots driving these autonomous vehicles to be able to service humankind and mankind because of demand. But here's the consideration. As we move forward into AI adoption, we are going to see less and less jobs being taken away. More and more jobs, being taken away. But we did a study between January 1st of 2024 and January 12th, 2024. Over 110,000 people were laid off globally. Over 110,000 people were laid off from technology companies and banking just in 12 days of this month. But here's the consideration. Now all these people are laid off. They have no plan B, many of them. They want to go drive that truck, but the truck owner is saying it's too late. We have robots here. Here's my point. David, you are working in the world of robotics. You are working in the world of STEM. And we are telling our children across the country, no matter the color, no matter the gender, wherever they're at, we're telling them STEM is the way to go. They sign up for it. They do what they're supposed to do. But all of a sudden, when it comes to gainful employment, there may be a robot that did the interview process better than them. Robots, we don't have to give them benefits. We don't have to give them health care. We plug them in, turn it off at the end of the day. Here's where I'm getting at, David. Help me to understand and help us to understand the sense of this. There was a time where we talked about, as Dr. Furness talked about, the R2-D2s of the world. We talk about robots, and we left that in Star Trek, and we left that in Star Wars. But the reality is that it seems to me that these AIs that we're dealing with, they're about to have an embodiment when it comes to how they operate. And in some ways, these robots are here. What does this world look like when it comes to AI, robotics, and education? And what does it mean when we're integrating and preparing the teachers that teach the teachers? Who is doing the teaching?
So it's a very good question. You know, what does it look like? It looks like leveraging data-driven insights. It looks like leveraging new and cutting-edge adaptive technologies. When we look at these different AI technologies, how are we tailoring these experiences for not only our learners, but for our educators and for our instructors? How are we tailoring these new experiences? Whether it's through, adaptive learning platforms, personalized content recommendation, new tutoring systems, language processing. How are we bringing all that together to not only facilitate new learning, but meeting, the diverse needs of our students? When we look at all this data-driven technology and these new technologies, we have to think, how is it recognizing us? How are we using, things like facial expression? How are we using these computing technologies in a way that can provide academic success for a learner? Because that's the ultimate goal, academic success. When we look at that academic success, we look at, data-driven insights, we look at intelligent systems. We want our students to not only take ownership of this learning journey, but we want them to have, a deeper engagement and a deeper understanding to where it ultimately enhances educational outcomes and brings us greater and more diverse resources.
But who teaches the teachers, David?
That's a good question. We teach the teachers. Participants teach the teachers. We all have a hand in that ongoing success for not only deeper engagement, but for meaningful understanding and engagement.
You know what I think, David? And then let's go one by one in a rapid fire. We'll close this thing out and get ready for day 2. You know what I think? I believe those that participate at the Gatherverse community at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity, I think that they're some of the most capable people to go out here and teach the world on the better way to move forward when it comes to adoption, acceleration, development, build, and for who we build for, ultimately, hopefully, of innovation for human betterment on a number of different levels. But let's do this one by one. What's the most important thing that we need to know from you? Let's be very brief in our remarks, please. Starting with Ellie, what's the most important thing? Is the most important thing, in fact, we're going to start with Jamal, work our way up. Ellie, you're going to close out. What's the most important thing that we need to know about at the intersection of AI and education, Jamal?
That we have an incredible opportunity as a country to really lead the social technology associated with upgrading our human operating system. That, you know, we've been told as a country that we are a melting pot, but we not, and we've never really been, but we can be like a potluck where everybody brings, you know, all of their best dishes with all of their different ingredients together to create something where we learn how to get along. Like we can, these are things, this is a part of, we have the social emotional learning in school now,
Yes.
like, and we put that behind the curriculum.
Yes.
If we put that in front of the curriculum and start the process of actually learning how to connect and engage, you know, across ages and across, you know, racial and economic disparities, then we can find a way to actually improve the world. And that's what Gatherverse is all about. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Jamal. Dr. Kannan, please briefly, really quick.
Yeah. So coming to the education sector, if you see that we have a traditional way of teaching of innovation pedagogy, like for block teaching, board teaching, PowerPoint presentation, those kind of things. But coming to the technology, as it's a competitive world where we need to build our skills. So technology plays a crucial role. So we need to make this technology as a new innovation pedagogy, and we need to implement in the education system that creates more gaming experience and new learning experience for the students.
Thank you, Dr. Kannan. David, quickly, please.
Yes, it's a multidisciplinary collaborative approach between educators, researchers, content developers, stakeholders. Bring everyone to the table and make sure there's a consistent focus on reliability, accuracy, and educational effectiveness.
Thank you, David. Alan, please briefly.
Yes, I would just say for the audience, I guess, organize yourself into teams of 5 very creative people. Surround yourself by very creative people, because they're showing consistently across industries to just leave the orbit as far as creativity using AI. And so just that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Ellie?
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my ideas as somebody who's entering the industry. Remember that you and everything you're bringing to the table is immensely invaluable, and that cross-disciplinary curiosity that you hold is what's going to make the future. Continue learning and continue gathering.
And on that note, roundtable, thank you. Audience, thank you. Join us for day 2 at Gatherverse AI Summit 2024. Share what you've heard today. A lot's been said. Consider it. Keep safe. Keep well. Do good. Our gather was well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.